What am I supposed to do with that? Like they're doing windmills and dunking backwards, and I'm happy to like tap the backboard, you know? So I had to look at it from a long term because I wasn't going to give up on the game.
You are absolutely, positively brilliant. From the moment you were a seed in your mother's womb, encoded into your DNA was your brilliance.
You find that they are more successful, they have a lower divorce rate, higher income, higher status in society, that don't want that simple payoff now.
Growing up in Italy, when I first moved over there, it was, you know, I didn't speak Italian, I didn't have any friends. You know, I had the game of basketball, and through sport and playing soccer, I was able to make friends and build connections. But it was a lot of time spent alone. And when I came back to the States, I wasn't the most athletic kid. You know, I was really scrawny, like really, really skinny, and had like major knee issues because I was growing. So I was the dorky kid with high socks and big old knee pads.
It's fashionable now.
It's fashionable now. It wasn't then. It wasn't then. And so I had to look long term because in the here and now, I couldn't compete with these kids. I mean, there's kids that were like 12 years old with beards. Like, I can't. What am I supposed to do with that? Like, they're doing windmills and dunking backwards, and I'm happy to like tap the backboard, you know? So I had to look at it from a long term because I wasn't going to give up on the game.
Right.
So I had to say, okay, this year, I'm going to get better at that. Next year, this, and then so forth and so on. And then patiently, I was able to catch them.
Yeah, I love hearing that, because I think so many of us kind of, you believe like when you see people like yourself, it's like, it's so easy as an excuse to ourselves to just be, oh, you're destined for it, right? You were made for it. It's kind of like that kind of, you know, like, oh yeah, it's, you know, but when you talk about saying, oh, actually, when I started, I didn't have the physicality that meant that I was going to make it. Like you had to figure it out, and I love it.
Figure it out, man. It's just piece by piece, and it's the consistency of the work, which, and so like the consistency of work, Monday, get better. Tuesday, get better. Wednesday, get better, right? And you do that over a period of time, you know, not like 1 month or 2 months. I mean, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And then you can get to where you want to go.
Yeah, I think it was Bill Gates who was talking about that. He talks about how like we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years.
No doubt.
Right? Like it's like that, you know.
No doubt. You know, obsessiveness just comes from something that you love. Like you really love it, you'll go through fire for it. You know, you'll go through the ups and downs with it, and you'll just keep at it because you love it so much, you know?
Because you've talked about this before, where your father said to you, like, whether you score 0 or 60, like, I love you.
Yeah.
Tell me what that statement meant to you at that time, and how did it actually motivate you to continue scoring 60 rather than go, oh, I'm all right at 0?
Well, it did more than that, right? So, like, the basketball stuff speaks for itself in terms of what that comment did for me, in terms of giving me stability and giving me confidence to say, okay, it's okay to fail because you're going to be loved no matter what. And that doesn't just mean basketball. That means anything in life. Right? That means writing. That means being an entrepreneur. That means having the confidence to go for it. It's about the metaphor that sports has for life. I mean, you know, sports is the greatest metaphor we have in terms of dealing with life. Because, you know, even if you listen to music will give you guidance, right? That you can then meditate on and think about how you would apply it. In sports, you have to apply it in the here and now. I mean, you're faced with challenges moment to moment. You're faced with pressures and anxiety and communication or the lack thereof and all this other stuff. Like, it's in the moment. So you have to live it. And when you practice those things, you become better at it. Yeah, Oprah told me this when I first decided to build the studio, and I was asking her how Harpo came to be. And she said, well, when she was doing her deal for the Oprah Winfrey Show, she was re-upping her deal. And actually, the first contract she made, she said, well, don't pay me up front. Just I want to own a percentage of the show. And so they gave it to her. Now, at the time, there weren't any black women hosting the daytime talk show, right? So it was really new. And she said, you know, Kobe, if they believed that the show was going to be successful, they wouldn't have given me that. They wouldn't have. In their mind, they're thinking, oh, we got to steal. We don't have to pay her. We can take this money and move it over here. This is great. You know, it's going to be a flop or be successful. I don't know. At least we get diversity on TV. It's fine. And all of a sudden it's, trouble.
We shouldn't have given it away. Yeah.
Opened up Pandora's box, right? So now you come back for the next deal and it's like, you gotta have to give me some more ownership.
Yeah.
You're like, dang it. here. And then ultimately she, came to owning 100% of her show.
Yeah.
And so people think it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You gotta like obsess over it for a while and then it kind of pops loose.
Absolutely. Yeah. You had to plant the seed well before to see the fruit.
Yeah. And you gotta water it all the time, man. Like you gotta sit down and watch other shows that are out there and like, and then ultimately you just find, like when the answer comes to you, it's like, my God, I could have thought of that on the first day. I remember John Williams told me that. He'll sit for like 2 months to try to figure out what the melody is.
Yeah.
And he'll just be playing. He'll be at his piano all day. He'll say the only day he'll take off is Sunday because his wife forces him to take Sundays off. And he'll just be sitting there writing. And then it just comes. Yeah. And he's like, I seriously could have thought of that on the first day. Like, why? It's just so simple.
Absolutely. How have you been able to, in your life, see past the cloud of emotion to actually execute on things? Because I think what we were speaking about earlier, this challenge that young people have today, everyone has today, of just so much information, so much cloud of emotion, so many feelings, so much childhood baggage that you're bringing. Like, how have you always cut through that and execute on that?
What I try to do is just try to be still and understand that things come and go. Emotions come and go. The important thing is to accept them all, to embrace them all, and then you can choose to do with them what you want versus being controlled by emotion. A lot of times I've seen players, even myself, when I was younger, being consumed by a particular fear. And to the point where you're saying, okay, it's not good to feel fear. I shouldn't be nervous in this situation. Like, and it does nothing but grow. Versus stepping back and saying, yeah, I am nervous about this situation. Yeah, I am fearful about this situation. Well, what am I afraid of? And then you kind of unpack it. And then it gives you the ability to look at it for really what it is, which is nothing more than your imagination running its course. It's not really a thing. Like you think about game-winning shots or game-winning free throws, and people go to the free throw line and they're nervous about it. Well, what are you really nervous about? If you unpack that, okay, you're nervous that you're going to miss the shot. All right, so you miss the shot, then what happens? People are going to be embarrassed. You're going to be embarrassed because thousands of people, millions of people see you miss the shot. All right, and then what? People are going to talk bad about you. Okay, right? And so you're looking at it and you go, are those things even important? You know what I mean? If that is my fear, like what is, you worried about letting your teammates down? Okay, have you let them down before? Well, I'm sure, in practice and things of that nature, right? They're still there. Yeah. And so when you're able to unpack it, you kind of look at it for what it is, which is really nothing.
Yeah, I love that, breaking it down. I think that's so important. I think everyone who's listening and watching right now, next time you're facing a fear, next time you're going against something, do that. Like literally unpack it. Don't just settle for your first answer, because the first answer is rarely the right one.
Don't hide from it. You got to be able to look at it and, and deal with it head on.
Yeah, I love that, man. And you talk about that because you talk about, when you talk about missing 5 throws and you talk about getting over yourself. Yeah. Right? Like getting over yourself. How did you get that mentality of just being like, I need to get over this. Like, I need to get over myself.
Trial and error. You grow up and you make game-winning shots and it's awesome. You come back the next day and miss a game-winning shot and it's misery. And then the next day comes and you're back playing again. And you understand that life has this cyclical nature where it's, what you do on Monday is fantastic, but then Tuesday is a bad day. But guess what? There's Wednesday. Yeah. So are we just supposed to live our lives like this the whole time? Versus just staying like this and understanding that it's really just a journey of evolution every day. It's just constant improvement, constant curiosity, constantly getting better. The results don't really matter. It's the figuring out with the inner challenges, the kind of the self-negotiation that takes place inside of our own heads. You're out running on a track, working out, and you start talking to yourself saying, man, my knee is really sore right now. Maybe I'm doing too much.
Sounds like me.
Maybe I need to back off, man, my lungs are burning. Maybe I can just slow down here. I'll do like an extra 2 sets tomorrow. It'll be okay. Yeah. Right? That sort of stuff.
Yes.
Like that stuff's dangerous.
Yes.
And that's, you just got to say, you know what? I'm not negotiating with myself.
Yeah.
The deal was already made. The deal was made when I set out at the beginning of the summer and said, this is the training plan I'm doing. I signed that contract with myself. I'm doing it. Throughout that process, you'll start talking to yourself like, man, I think I need to, nope. No, this is non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Yeah. Like what I found is creativity a lot of time comes from structure.
I agree. I'm
You know
so
what I'm
glad
saying?
you said
like
that.
when you have
Yeah.
those parameters and the structure, then within that you can be creative. But like if you don't have the structure, you're just aimlessly doing stuff. You're just
Yes,
like,
yes.
you know, where are you going? Like when I was writing Was an Art series and outlining legacy, coming in the morning, 7 a.m. and I'm there. I'm writing backstory from 7 to 12, then go pick up my kids, and then I come right back and I'm writing again. So like within that structure, you know, my mind when I go to sleep is already like planning of what the next day is going to be because I know, you know what it is I have to do. It's that consistency and structure.
How are you encouraging young people to find the right mentors, and how can they find the right mentors, even through your work? I guess your work is somewhat mentorship.
We try to be, you know, and you know, I think the important thing is research. You know, in the hall here in the office, I have a hall that I call Muse Hall. We have all the portraits of some of our muses here, from J.K. Rowling to, you know, Steve Jobs and so forth and so on. And I think it's important to research them. And it's like putting, you know, fuel in the fire every day. You know, there's constant inspiration. When you read about them, what they were able to accomplish, how they went about accomplishing it, you're just constantly, you know, feeding that flame and learning. And the best way to do that is to learn from the people who have done it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That just made me so happy. I have a gallery wall in my home. If we were recording this at my place in Hollywood, like I have a gallery wall, Steve Jobs is right there.
Yeah.
Right, and Einstein's there, and Martin Luther King's there, and there's a few other people. And it's, for me, it's the same thing. It's like sometimes I'm sitting there and I'll be like, well, what would that person do? Like, how would they have dealt with this challenge?
Right.
And you're so right. I think you can be mentored by people who aren't alive.
100%, because their stories still live, which brings us to the importance of storytelling.
Yeah.
Their stories still live. These muses are here. It's important to learn from them. And if anything, it helps you remember that they are human, just like us.
Yeah.
These great things that get accomplished can be accomplished by others and beyond. You know, building Walt Disney Company is not something that, you know, people look at and scoff at and go, oh, it can't be done anymore. Well, why not? Why not?
Yeah. And the more action you take, the more you think is possible.
Yeah, because you realize they're people just like us. They made mistakes just like us. And they kept going. And we can do the same.
Somebody has snuffed out your opportunity. You were passed over. You didn't get the deal that was supposed to come through. And I am here to tell you that it is time to shift. Shift simply stands for see how I fit tomorrow today. Oh, the reason it didn't happen in the last season is because it wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't the right relationship. It wasn't the right opportunity, and it would have taken you off course. It is often said when a tire is out of alignment, that tire must go to the tire store so that it can be in alignment, because when it's out of alignment, it affects all the other tires. And I'm here to tell you the reason you have to shift into alignment is because how do you live? How do you operate? How do you think? I'm here to tell you that you are absolutely, positively brilliant. From the moment you were a seed in your mother's womb, encoded into your DNA was your brilliance. Dr. Howard Gardner, in his research at Harvard University, said that a child up until the age of 4 is operating at the genius level. Dr. Christian Mirsky, who is a psychologist at Princeton University, says in his research, when the brain is worried, the brain slows down. His same group of researchers begin to study these same children, and in their early 20s, only 10% were operating at the genius, or what I call the brilliance level, and in their late 20s, early 30s, only 2% were still operating at the genius or brilliance level. So the question you have, like I had, is where did this genius or brilliance go? It didn't go anywhere, but it became buried by a society that says color within the line, sit down, give it back, you can't do this. And conformity robs you of creativity. Now stick with me. If the brain slows down because of worry, worry has a BFF called stress, and stress has a first cousin called fear. But I came all the way from Orlando, Florida to let you know to shift the worry off of you, shift the fear off of you. You are not going to be afraid anymore. Baby, I'm telling you, it's time to get up and bust a move. when you show up and do what you do like nobody else because of your talent, your gift, and your ability. I am here to tell you that this is the day of shift. And I am here to tell you, in a world of algorithms, autonomous cars, artificial intelligence, that everything you need to succeed at this season and as we move into a new decade is in you, baby. You got it going on. Shift your brilliance. I want you to say with me, Vujade. Vujade is the opposite of deja vu. Means been there, done that, but Vujade is going there, doing that. Vujade is confirmation in your spirit about making important changes without having external validation. Uber looked at the taxi cab industry through a different lens. They said, how do we see it differently? How do we now put the power in the hand of the passenger? So the passenger can call the car to you instead of waiting for the car to show up. And because you call the car to you, you can rate the experience. I was in a taxi cab not too long ago in a major city in the Northeast, and the cab driver, I got in the cab and he was just complaining about, oh my goodness, Uber is taking my business, Lyft is taking my business. And I said to myself, I see why. Because if I was a taxi, I would clean it up, I would vacuum it, I would make sure it smelled good, I would have a bowl of mints in the back of the car. When I dropped you off at your location, I would get up out of my seat, come around, open your door, give you my card, and tell you the next time you need me, call me. It's Vujade. Vujade is realizing that there will come a time when you will have to break with the old to embrace the new, to let go of what is comfortable and convenient in order to grow and expand. My mother used to say, the way up is down. Now, in every system within the last decade, many systems have experienced a shift. For example, 10 years ago, Eastman Kodak possessed 1,000 patents and over 18,000 employees. At the same time, 10 years ago, Instagram came on the scene, and 2 years later, Instagram was sold for $1 billion to Facebook and only had 13 employees. What happened to Eastman Kodak? They didn't shift and they didn't see it. A number of years ago, I was working at Disney. I sensed in my heart that it was time to leave. Had 2 vice presidents' offers to go and work at smaller companies. Had an internal move at Disney, at a senior director position with Learjet to head up all customer care for Learjet owners in the world through a company called FlexJet. And I turned them all down. I turned them all down right when our country was going to war with Iraq for the second time. So I was called by a friend, and they said, I want you to write a blog once a month, inspirational blog, 500 words or less. I said, once a month, I can manage that. If I write a blog, 500 words, once a month, at the end of the year, that's 12 chapters in a book. And so that's how I started with the book, Release Your Brilliance. I decided to do the unthinkable. So I cashed in my entire 401k with significant Disney stock, took out a line of credit on the house, and I said, I want to get out here and bust this move. When I wrote that book, I sold it out of the back of my trunk, almost 17,000 copies, and I had received 13 rejection letters from New York and LA publishers who said no. But I didn't care because I realized I was going to build a relationship with each reader. Well, I went and I talked to the chairman, and he said, well, I heard we need to have you, but we've never heard of you. We don't know what you do. At the end of my time with almost 400 of their leaders, he said, take a walk with me. And we walked next door. We were at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. We walked next door, and in a matter of 30 minutes, he introduced me to 13 of the publishers that had rejected me, and he said, we are the largest book purchaser in the world. We want you to give him a book deal. Oh my goodness, because I began to understand all I had to get out was do and start walking. Because listen, if you don't remember anything else, remember relationships are the currency of the future. There will never be a perfect time for you to become the person you might have been. Because when you arrive into tomorrow, you call it today, but everything that you did yesterday meets you in the future and says, welcome, we've been waiting for you. I don't care how much we talk about Siri, I don't care how much we talk about voice search, I don't care how much we talk about Alexa. I'm telling you, relationships are the currency of the future. There's a new mindset, there's a new skill set, and there is a new will set that must begin to emerge to go into this next decade where we are moving quicker and faster. Because you've always done it this way. Why is that important? Because when you're in your 20s, you think you know everything. When you're in your 30s, you get the wind knocked out of your sail. When you're in your 40s, you begin to say, I gotta get myself together. And when you hit the 50s, you're like, wait a minute, baby, I don't have to take this anymore. In other words, as you move towards 50, 60, and 70, you're like a better wine, you get better in time. So what am I gonna have to shift into? Oh my goodness, it's gonna get good in a minute. At LAX, whenever a plane is taking off or landing, the pilot has to submit a flight plan to the FAA. That flight plan includes how much jet fuel is on board, alternate routes just in case the plane needs to land somewhere else, the number of passengers on the plane by name, and where they are connecting to. And what's interesting is when a plane is told now you are ready for departure, the pilot begins to back the plane up from the gate, and the gate and once it lines up, it's not yet ready for takeoff because it must get the green light from the tower to say you are now ready to take off. So many people say, I'm trying to find my purpose. I'm waiting to find my purpose. Guess what? Your purpose is to be discovered when you get up and start moving. We have often heard about the takeoff, but I started thinking, why don't people shift? And it's because they have been circling the airport of opportunity. You've been cleared for landing. And by the time your plane lands, you're not gonna be scatterbrained anymore. You're not gonna be fearful anymore. By the time that plane pulls into the gate of opportunity, you're gonna walk on the concourse of a breakthrough. And as you walk on the concourse of a breakthrough, you're gonna take the escalator down the ground transportation to be exported into your destiny. So West Day, get ready, you've been cleared for landing.
When you look at children and you look at all the different theories about what makes successful kids, you realize that almost all the theories are wrong because they haven't been verified. Like, for example, high IQ. You have a lot of high IQ people who become marginal members of society. And so what is the one psychological test that correlates with success in life? And I found out that it's the marshmallow test. You get kids and ask them, do you want a marshmallow now or 2 marshmallows a few hours from now? And the kids that want the marshmallow now tend to be those that want shortcuts, those that don't want to do the hard work. They want the quick kill. They grab that marshmallow. But the other ones say, no, wait a minute. If I wait 2 hours, I can get 2 marshmallows. I can hold out. There's a pot of gold waiting for me. They're not going to take the shortcut. And so you say to yourself, well, that's a test for kids. But then you track them decade by decade by decade. And you find that they are more successful, they have a lower divorce rate, higher income, higher status in society, that don't want that simple payoff now, but are gonna delay gratification into the future. And so I realized that that's the key to success in life, not just science, but in life. Don't take the shortcuts.
But can it be taught?
Well, part of it is your personality that is formed when you're very young, okay? Let's be very clear about that. But I think that, yes, I think that, for example, it turns out that if you do the same thing with poor children and the same thing with middle-class children, it turns out that poor children will, in general, go for the quick kill because they know that things disappear real fast. If there's money in the house, it's gone in the future. If you can show people that there is a pot of gold out there, that yes, you hold out, you go to college, you'll learn the discipline, there's a pot of gold out there. You can learn to appreciate that fact. What we have in the brain that is different from animals is we understand time. We understand the future. My grandparents came to California 100 years ago. But imagine, back then, life expectancy was 49 years of age. I mean, you were born, you had kids, and died. Life was a bitch. Now we have an increased lifespan. We have all the luxury goods. Instead of yelling out the window, which is what my grandparents did to communicate, we have the internet. And so when you look at it the long term, decade for decade, you realize the enormous progress that we've made. We constantly daydream, we scheme, we plot. We constantly think about what could be. Now let's do an experiment. Go home tonight and teach your dog the concept of tomorrow. Try it. Teach your dog the concept of tomorrow, the next week, the next year, and you realize you can't. Animals live in the present. And that's what I think intelligence is. Intelligence is being able to map the future, simulate the future. So if you get an experiment, people with low IQ and high IQ, put them in the same room, and you give them the same job, rob a bank. You'll find out that the low IQ people probably do a much better job of robbing a bank, plotting the bank robbery, than high IQ people who get all messed up with legal implications and stuff like that. The point is that you can have some very smart robbers because they see the future. And that's what we humans do that animals cannot. We constantly daydream. We constantly create worlds that don't exist. And to me, that's what intelligence is. Some people ask me, well, what is the meaning of life then? And I say to myself that if somebody gives you from up high the meaning of life, it's too easy. I mean, is that all? My attitude is that it's self-discovery. We have to reinvent ourselves, that we have to recreate ourselves, that the meaning of life is rediscovery.